You're not lazy, you're not broken, but these 7 habits, they're secretly destroying your life. And the worst part, you think they're normal. You keep thinking you'll do it tomorrow. You'll wake up early tomorrow. You'll go to the gym tomorrow. You'll start the project, make the call, send the email tomorrow. But here's the truth, and I say this with love. You're lying to yourself. Not because you're a bad person, not because you're lazy, but because you're stuck in the habit of waiting to feel ready. You've convinced yourself that readiness is a feeling, like motivation, that just magically shows up one day and gives you permission to move. But that's not how this works. That's not how change works. That's not how life works. You keep hesitating because your brain is doing its job. It's trying to protect you. That hesitation you feel right before doing something new or scary, that's your brain hitting the brakes. It's a survival mechanism. It's your mind saying, whoa, wait a second, this might be uncomfortable. So instead of taking action, you stop, you scroll, you distract, you talk yourself out of it. And the cycle starts all over again. You think you need to feel ready, but what you actually need is to understand that you don't. Feeling ready is not a requirement. It's a trap. I lived most of my life this way. I used to lie in bed every morning dreading the day, knowing I had stuff to do but feeling too overwhelmed to move. I'd tell myself I'd start fresh tomorrow, that I just needed more sleep, more time, more energy. But deep down, I knew none of that was the issue. The issue was me waiting to feel a certain way before I acted. And that feeling never came, not once, not ever. So I stayed stuck, miserable, watching life pass by while I waited for a spark that didn't exist. Then one morning, everything shifted. I saw a rocket launch on TV. Just this quick moment, nothing special, but something about the countdown caught my attention. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, liftoff. No debate, no hesitation, just action. And I thought, what if I did that? What if I counted down and just got out of bed before I had the chance to think myself out of it? So I tried it. I counted backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I stood up. I didn't feel like it. I didn't want to, but I did it. And that moment changed everything. What I discovered is that you can outsmart your own brain. You can move before your excuses show up. That small window between knowing what you need to do and actually doing it, that's your moment of power. And if you don't act in that window, your mind will talk you out of it every single time. You'll rationalize, delay, and distract yourself into inaction. But if you move, if you just take one small action, you break the cycle. And once you break the cycle, you build momentum. Stop waiting to feel motivated. Stop waiting for clarity or confidence or energy. You think those things come first, but they don't. They're the result of doing, not the requirement. You build confidence by keeping promises to yourself. You create clarity by taking the first step. You generate energy by getting up and moving forward. That's the secret. That's how you get unstuck. Not by thinking, not by planning, by doing. And look, I know it's hard. I know you're tired. I know you've got fears and doubts and a million reasons to stay right where you are. But I'm telling you, your life is not waiting for the perfect moment. It's waiting for you to stop hesitating. It's waiting for you to take control. Because here's the thing, every single dream, every goal, every breakthrough you want is on the other side of action, not preparation, not perfection, action. So the next time you hear yourself say, I'll start tomorrow, I want you to catch it, interrupt it, count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Get out of bed, go for the walk. Make the call, write the first sentence. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. You have to start before you're ready, because that's how you become ready. That's how you grow. That's how you become the person you're trying so hard to become. This isn't about motivation. This is about movement. You don't need more time. You don't need more information. You need a push, and no one else can give it to you. You have to push yourself. You have to be the one to decide, enough is enough. I'm done waiting. That's when everything changes. Not when you feel like it, but the moment you act like it. You've been waiting long enough. Now move. Let's get brutally honest for a second. One of the most damaging things you can do, and most people don't even realize they're doing it, is breaking promises to yourself. I'm not talking about big dramatic failures. I'm talking about the tiny, quiet betrayals you make every single day. You tell yourself you're going to get up early and you don't. You say you're going to stop scrolling and start working and you don't. Cortisol is a loud chemical that's always going on, and you have to learn to eliminate it. It's going to impact everything we do. You say this week is going to be different, but it's not. And every time you do this, every time you say one thing and do another, you're not just disappointing yourself, you're eroding your trust in you. You know what happens when you constantly break your own promises? You stop believing in yourself. That little voice in your head that used to say, you got this, goes silent. Or worse, it turns on you. It starts whispering, why bother? You never follow through anyway. And once that happens, motivation becomes a myth. Confidence, gone. Because deep down, you know the truth. You don't trust yourself to do what you say you'll do. And that's a problem. Because if you can't trust you, who can you trust? I hear people say all the time, I just need more discipline. No, you don't. What you need is integrity with yourself. You need to treat the promises you make to you the same way you treat a promise to someone you love. Think about it. If you promised your best friend you'd meet them at 6 a.m. or a workout, you'd be there. You'd drag yourself out of bed, throw on some clothes, and show up, even if you were tired. But when you make that same promise to yourself, you hit snooze. You roll over. You decide it doesn't really matter, but it does. It matters more than anything. Keeping promises to yourself is where self-respect starts. It's where real confidence is built, not from achievements, not from praise, not from likes or followers or applause. It's built in those quiet moments when nobody's watching, when it's just you and the choice to either show up or back down. And here's the kicker. It's not even about the result. It's not about running 10 miles or writing a whole book or finishing the task perfectly. It's about keeping the commitment. It's about saying, I'm doing this, and then doing it, no matter how messy or small or uncomfortable it feels. You want to know why this matters so much? Because every time you do follow through, you cast a vote for the kind of person you want to become. You send a message to your brain that says, I can count on me. And when you do that consistently, day after day, promise after promise, you start to build this incredible foundation of self-trust. And self-trust changes everything. It makes you braver. It makes you more resilient. It makes you stop waiting for permission and start moving with purpose. You stop asking if you're good enough and start proving it to yourself. But let's be real. This isn't easy. Life gets chaotic. Plans fall apart. Emotions run high. There will be days when you don't feel like doing anything. And that's where most people quit. They use their feelings as a measurement for whether or not to act. But here's the truth. Your feelings are not a compass. They're not facts. They're just signals. And if you let them decide your behavior, you will never move forward. The key is to make the promise and keep it regardless of how you feel. So how do you start? You start small. You don't need 100 new habits or a perfectly structured routine. You need one promise that you actually keep. Maybe it's waking up when your alarm goes off. Maybe it's drinking water before coffee. Maybe it's writing for 5 minutes a day. I don't care what it is. Just make it simple and keep it. And when you do, celebrate it, not with a reward or a trophy or some public announcement, but by telling yourself, I did it. I followed through. I can trust me, because that's the real transformation. It's not in the hustle. It's not in the grind. It's in the quiet act of becoming someone who shows up. And once you become that person, someone who does what they say they'll do, there is nothing you can't build on top of that. That's your power. That's your anchor. That's how you take control of your life. So if you're tired of feeling stuck, if you're sick of letting yourself down, if you want real, lasting change, it starts here. Make a promise to yourself and then keep it no matter what. Let me ask you something. How much time do you spend talking about what's wrong instead of doing something about it? And I mean, really think about it. Because if we're being honest, most people don't even realize how much of their day is filled with complaining. Complaining about the job, complaining about their body, complaining about their schedule, their finances, their relationships. It becomes so normal, so automatic that you don't even notice it anymore. But I want you to understand something very clearly. Complaining doesn't change anything. It keeps you stuck. It gives you this illusion that you're doing something, when really you're just reinforcing the very thing you say you want to escape. Now I get it. Venting feels good. It feels like release. And sometimes it is helpful to talk about what's frustrating you, but that's only true if it leads to action. And for a lot of people, it doesn't. It stops at the complaint. It turns into a habit, a way of bonding with others, a default setting. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But what you don't realize is every time you complain without changing, you're actually giving your power away. You're saying, this thing has control over me, and I'm just going to keep reliving it instead of rewriting it. That's not strength. That's surrender. And you weren't built to surrender like that. When you complain about something over and over, what you're really doing is building your identity around it. You're making it part of your story. This always happens to me. I'm just not that kind of person. Life's never fair. And you repeat those lines so often that eventually you believe them. You wear them like armor. But that armor, it's heavy. It keeps you from growing. It keeps you from even trying to do things differently. Because if your story is that you're always overwhelmed, always unlucky, always getting the short end of the stick, then of course you're not going to reach for more. Your mind already decided it's not possible. So I want to challenge you on something. The next time you catch yourself complaining, stop and ask, what am I going to do about it? Not what should they do, not what's wrong with the world, not how hard it is. What are you going to do? Because that's the only thing you can actually control. Your actions, your response, your choices. And the moment you stop wasting energy on what you can't change and start focusing on what you can, everything begins to shift. But I'll be honest with you, this is not easy. Change never is. Complaining is comfortable. It's familiar. It lets you off the hook. But comfort is not where your best life lives. Your growth, your purpose, your confidence. It lives on the other side of discomfort. And that means being willing to get real with yourself, to admit when you're stuck in a loop, to recognize when you're choosing the easier path instead of the braver one, because that's what it is. It's a choice. I've been there. I've been the person who complained about everything. I'd walk around like life was happening to me, not for me. I blamed the job, the stress, the people around me. I had a reason for everything. But at some point, I had to look in the mirror and realize that if I wanted my life to change, I had to be the one to change it. Nobody was coming to rescue me. And honestly, that was the most empowering realization of my life. Because once I took ownership, once I stopped blaming and started doing, that's when everything started to shift. Now, I'm not saying your complaints aren't valid. I'm sure they are. But I am saying that if you want something to change, venting about it isn't enough. You have to back it up with action, even if it's small, even if it's messy, even if you don't know where it will lead. Because progress isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something consistently. So turn your complaints into fuel. Let your frustration push you forward. Use it as a signal, not to spiral, but to start. Because at the end of the day, you only get one life. And spending it complaining is not a life well lived. Take your power back. Do something different. Change the story. Let's talk about one of the biggest lies your brain loves to tell you. That if you just keep thinking about something long enough, you'll figure it out. That's not clarity. That's a trap. That's overthinking. And it is absolutely stealing your life. It's like your brain puts your dreams, your goals, your peace on hold and says, let me keep you safe by running through every possible outcome again and again and again. But here's the problem. You're not moving. You're not deciding. You're not living. You're just circling the same thought loop, wearing yourself out and convincing yourself that somehow one more round of analysis will give you the courage to act. But it never does. Because overthinking doesn't lead to clarity. It leads to fear. It leads to self-doubt. And it leads to missed opportunities. Now, don't get me wrong. Thinking things through is smart. Being intentional is powerful. But there's a line. And when you cross it, you stop preparing and start procrastinating. And most people don't realize that line until they're already deep in it. You know what it looks like? It looks like sitting on an idea for 6 months and still telling yourself now's not the time. It looks like reading 15 articles about a decision and still feeling paralyzed. It looks like replaying the same conversation in your head, looking for a perfect response instead of picking up the phone and talking like a human being. And you know what's really happening underneath it all? You're afraid to be wrong. You're afraid to be judged. You're afraid to act and fail. So instead, you hide behind thinking. But let me be clear. That's not thinking. That's avoiding. That's delaying your life. And it's costing you more than you realize. Because every moment you spend stuck in your head is a moment you're not living in your life. Overthinking takes your focus and robs your energy. It steals your time, your peace, your momentum. And the worst part, most of the things you're obsessing about aren't even real. They're imagined, they're worst-case scenarios. They're stories your brain creates based on fear, not facts. You're literally exhausting yourself over things that may never happen. And even if they do, you've handled hard things before, you'll handle them again. But your brain forgets that when it's in survival mode. It just wants to protect you. And the easiest way to do that is to talk you out of moving forward. This is why overthinking feels productive, but it's not. It's passive. It's deceptive. It makes you feel like you're doing something when really you're doing nothing but spinning. And you cannot build a meaningful life while spinning. You need forward motion. You need action. And yes, that's scary. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But So is staying stuck. So is waking up every day with the same unresolved decisions hanging over your head. So is knowing deep down that you're holding yourself back, not because you can't move, but because you won't. So how do you break out of it? You act before you're ready. You decide while you're still unsure. You stop waiting for the perfect moment, because guess what? It's not coming. Clarity comes through action, not thought. Confidence comes from trying, not planning. You want to feel different? You have to do different. You don't think your way into courage, you step into it. Even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if the path ahead is foggy, you take the step anyway. That's how momentum is built, one brave move at a time. And let's be honest, you already know what you need to do. You've known for a while, but overthinking has convinced you that you need more time, more info, more signs. You don't. You need movement. You need to disrupt the pattern. Because once you interrupt the loop and take that first imperfect action, everything starts to shift. The fear shrinks, the path gets clearer, you start to remember who you are and what you're capable of. So here's the truth. Thinking is only powerful when it leads to action. Anything else is just fear in disguise. So stop sitting on your life. Stop analyzing your dreams to death. You're not going to think your way into a new reality. You're going to build it. One small, messy, bold step at a time. You've got this. Now move. Let me tell you something most people never want to admit out loud. You're never going to feel like doing the hard things. You're never going to wake up and suddenly be overflowing with motivation to break the habit, change your life, or push through the discomfort. That magical feeling you're waiting on, it's not coming. And if you keep waiting on it, you're going to be stuck right where you are, watching time pass, watching other people move, while you keep telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow. And then tomorrow becomes next week becomes next month, and before you know it, your life is full of good intentions and zero results. I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. And sometimes the truth has to snap you awake. You see, motivation is not a strategy. It's a feeling. And feelings are unreliable. They change with the weather, with your sleep, with how someone talked to you this morning. You cannot build your life on something that inconsistent. You cannot wait until you feel like it, because if you do, you'll never get anything meaningful done. You have to stop thinking that motivation is what gets people to take action. It's not. Discipline is. Choice is. And most of the time, the most successful people, the ones who look like they're so dialed in, so motivated, so on top of everything, they're not driven by motivation. They're driven by commitment. They do it without feeling like it. I'm going to be real with you. There are days I don't feel like showing up. I'm going to be real with you. There are days I don't feel like showing up. There are mornings I don't want to get out of bed. There are workouts I don't want to do. Emails I don't want to write. Deadlines I'd love to push off. But I've learned something powerful. If you only act when you feel like it, you're never going to get where you want to go. The people who change their lives are the ones who act in spite of how they feel. They make the call even when they're scared. They go to the gym even when they're tired. They speak up even when their voice shakes, because they know something most people don't. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. You think you need motivation to start, but really, you just need a moment of courage. You need to push yourself through the resistance. You need 5 seconds of bravery to override the excuse, because here's what happens. Once you start, once you take that first step, your brain kicks into gear. Your energy shifts. You prove to yourself that you're capable, and that creates momentum. But if you sit around waiting to feel ready, you'll be sitting forever. You're not going to feel ready. You're going to feel scared. You're going to feel uncertain. You're going to feel uncomfortable. And that's okay. That's not a sign to stop. That's a sign to start. Think about it. How many times in your life have you done something hard, even though you didn't feel like it? How many times did you show up when it would have been easier to walk away? That's proof. You already have the strength inside you. You just need to stop waiting for it to show up in the form of motivation and start accessing it through action. You don't need to feel inspired. You need to move. That first step is always the hardest, but it's also the most powerful. It sets the tone. It changes your mindset. It shows your brain who's in charge. And here's the part nobody tells you. Motivation often shows up after you've started. Once you're in motion, once your brain sees that you're doing the thing, it gets on board. It stops fighting you. It starts helping you. That's when the energy shows up. That's when the fire comes back. But you only get there by starting, not by thinking, not by planning, not by wishing, by moving. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop telling yourself you need to be motivated. You don't. You need to make a choice, a small one, a simple one. Just start. Do it messy. Do it scared. Do it tired, but do it. Because every day you wait is a day you're choosing comfort over growth. It's a day you're trading your potential for a temporary excuse. And I don't want that for you. You're capable of more. You're ready, whether you feel like it or not. So show up, start before you're ready, and watch what happens when you stop waiting for motivation and start acting like the person you want to become. Let me ask you something. How much of your life have you spent trying to make everyone around you happy while quietly letting yourself down? Be honest, because this one is big. It's sneaky. It hides behind words like being nice or doing the right thing or not wanting to disappoint anyone. But underneath it, it's a habit that's destroying your identity. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, every time you shrink so someone else can shine, every time you bite your tongue instead of speaking your truth, you're teaching yourself that their needs matter more than yours. And let me tell you something, that's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. This idea that you can make everybody happy if you just work hard enough or stay small enough or sacrifice yourself long enough, it's a trap. And it will never work, because the truth is, no matter how much you give, no matter how perfect you try to be, someone will always want more. Someone will always be upset. Someone will always disapprove. You're not here to live someone else's life. You're here to live yours. And if you're constantly bending, shifting, hiding, and performing to keep the peace or earn approval, you're not actually living. You're surviving. You're existing in a version of yourself that's watered down. And that version is not sustainable. You will burn out. You will become resentful. And one day you'll wake up and realize you don't even recognize the person in the mirror. You think keeping the peace is noble, but peace at the cost of your own well-being is not peace. It's pressure. It's stress. It's a life lived out of alignment. And the truth is, when you try to be everything for everyone, you end up being nothing for yourself. And I get it. It feels good to be liked. It feels safe. But chasing approval is a losing game. You will never win it. And more importantly, it's not your job to win it. Your job is to be you, authentically, unapologetically, and fully. Because when you stop trying to fit into the version of yourself that other people expect, you make room for the version that you were born to be. And that version is the one who's going to change your life. Let's be clear. It is not selfish to set boundaries. It is not rude to say no. It is not arrogant to honor your own needs. That's called self-respect. That's called owning your worth. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, that's okay. You're not responsible for other people's reactions. You're responsible for your truth. You're responsible for your peace. And if someone only values you when you're convenient, agreeable, or available on their terms, that's not love. That's control. That's attachment. That's conditional. And you deserve more than that. It's time to stop living for the applause. It's time to stop seeking validation in other people's opinions. Because here's the truth. You don't need anyone's permission to be yourself. You don't need approval to take up space. You don't need a green light to follow your gut. You're allowed to disappoint others in order to stay true to yourself. You're allowed to say no without explaining why. You're allowed to want more, to change your mind, to draw a line. You're allowed to be a whole, real, imperfect human being, not a version crafted for someone else's comfort. And here's the beautiful part. When you start showing up as yourself, the right people will find you. The people who value you, who see you, who accept you for who you actually are, not who you pretend to be. Those are your people. And you can't find them if you're busy performing. You can't attract what's real when you're hiding behind a mask. You got to show up fully, even when it's messy, even when it's scary, even when not everyone claps for it. So stop trying to please everyone. That's not your purpose. That's not your power. Your power is in your truth, your voice, your boundaries, your self-respect. That's where freedom lives. That's where peace lives. That's where your real life begins. And the moment you stop living for their comfort and start living for your own clarity, everything changes. Let me tell you something that might sting at first, but it's the truth. You are focused on the wrong things. You are so caught up in what you don't have, what you can't do, what's missing from your life, that you've completely forgotten to pay attention to what you do have. And here's what happens when you do that. Your brain gets stuck. It gets trapped in scarcity. You start seeing everything through the lens of lack. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time. I don't have the right connections. I'm not good enough. And then you know what happens? Your energy gets drained. You're living in a constant state of feeling like you're not measuring up. You start thinking that success, happiness, and fulfillment are out of reach because you're too busy focusing on the things you haven't accomplished yet. But here's the thing. What you focus on, you magnify. If you're constantly focusing on what's missing, you'll never see what's right in front of you. And that's a dangerous cycle to get caught in. Because when you're only looking at what's not there, you ignore all the blessings, all the resources, all the strengths you already have. It's like trying to run a race while you're looking at your feet instead of the finish line. You're missing the whole picture, and you're exhausting yourself by running in circles. What if, instead of obsessing over what you lack, you started seeing what you've already built? What if, instead of focusing on the things that haven't happened yet, you took a moment to appreciate the progress you've already made? I'm telling you, if you shift your focus, even just a little bit, it will change your life. Because once you start recognizing what's already working, you start building momentum. You start seeing new possibilities. You start seeing how far you've already come. You stop feeling like you're running out of time, and you start feeling like you have more than enough time to create the life you want. Ooh, I get it. It's easy to get distracted by what's missing. We live in a world that constantly reminds us of what we don't have. Social media, advertisements, even the people around us are all telling us that we need more. But you don't. You already have everything you need to take the next step. You may not have all the answers. You may not know exactly how everything is going to unfold, but the resources, the strength, ideas, they're already inside of you. And if you can just stop focusing on the voids in your life, you'll start to see those things a lot more clearly. So, what can you do right now? You can make a choice. You can choose to look at what you do have instead of what you don't. You can choose to be grateful for the small victories, the lessons learned, the progress made, even if it doesn't feel like much. Because here's the thing, small steps still move you forward. And the more you focus on the good, the more that good multiplies. The more you build the muscle of gratitude, the more your brain starts scanning for what's working in your life, not what's missing. And that shift is everything. It's the difference between feeling stuck and feeling unstoppable. It's the difference between living in a state of scarcity and living in a state of abundance. I want you to try something with me. Every single day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be huge. They don't have to be life-changing. Just start with the little things. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for the people in my life. I'm grateful for the opportunity to make a difference today. When you start looking for the good, you'll start seeing it everywhere. And that's when things will start to change, because what you focus on expands. If you focus on the problems grow. But if you focus on the blessings, those blessings multiply. That's the secret. So stop focusing on what's missing. Start focusing on what's already here. Start seeing the value in your journey right now, in this moment.